Hey, what's up everybody? Today I'm going to show you how to do an abdominal crunch and then go over the pros and cons so you can decide if you want to include them in your workouts. Let's get to it. Let's begin by going over how to do the traditional crunch. I'm starting by lying on the floor with my knees bent and feet flat. You can anchor your feet or leave them free. You can fold your arms or place your hands at your side or behind your head. From here, I'm squeezing my abs and lifting my shoulders around 4 to 6 inches off the floor. Now I'm lowering slowly back to the floor to complete the repetition. You should continue to squeeze the abs and keep constant tension throughout the entire set, which would typically range from 10 to 20 reps depending on your strength. Next, let's look at some common mistakes. If you are folding your arms, be careful not to round the back. Engage your upper back to keep as flat as possible. If you are placing your hands behind the head, it's important not to pull your head forward, putting excessive strain on the neck. Sitting all the way up could be considered a mistake because it becomes a sit-up, which is a different exercise. The crunch has a purposefully shallower range of motion to be easier on the low back. I'll talk more about this later. The final mistake is using momentum, as it throws off your form, puts you at a high risk of injury, and defeats the purpose of the exercise. Now that we know how to do crunches, let's decide if you should do them by looking at the pros and cons of the exercise. Starting with the pros. They are relatively easy to do. You can do them just about anywhere, and there is no equipment required. It is also a simple way to isolate the rectus abdominis, assuming that is your goal. While this sounds great, there are unfortunately several negatives. Even with the shallow range of motion, the crunch still does place compressive forces on the lumbar spine. It is not as much as a full sit-up, but it is still something to consider. This force is increased when going through lumbar flexion. You can help with this a little by placing your hands behind your back and shortening the range of motion, but you should definitely not do crunches if it causes you any pain. Another downside is that the crunch is not a great total core exercise as it mostly isolates the rectus abdominis, while ignoring the obliques, erectors, and glutes. I know that I just said isolating the abs was a positive, and for many people it is, but for the general population who want a more comprehensive core exercise, they should look elsewhere. The next con requires a basic understanding of what the core is designed to do, which is stabilize the spine and transfer force from the limbs. In the case of the crunch, movement is occurring at the spine rather than remaining stable, and force is being generated by the rectus abdominis itself. So for this reason, the crunch might not improve your ability to do other exercises such as the squat, which requires a neutral spine. Finally, there is the problem that many people do crunches because they have a belly and they want to see their abs. They think doing crunches will help with this, but unfortunately, there is no such thing as spot fat removal, meaning you don't get to decide which fat to burn, and doing crunches probably won't help with your midsection. So even if those muscles increase in size, unless you already have a relatively low body fat percentage, you still won't have a six-pack. Up to this point, I know I have been giving the crunch a pretty hard time, and there are plenty of videos and articles on the internet telling you that crunches are the worst exercise of all time because of the compressive forces it places on the spine. But so does doing squats, standing, and even sitting down to varying degrees. You also have people like Herschel Walker, who has been doing 3,000 full sit-ups a day for decades, and he seems to be doing just fine. Everyone is different and will be able to tolerate varying amounts of flexion and compression. So while crunches might not be my favorite exercise, and I think there are better options, I also don't think your spine is going to snap in half if you do a set of crunches from time to time. Like with everything in life, you have to look at the risk versus reward and decide for yourself. Hopefully this video helped you decide if you want to add crunches to your workouts. I put some links to some articles and studies in the description if you want to read more on the topic. If you want to see some other core exercises, check out this playlist right here. And I plan to do a whole series on other questionable exercises, so subscribe so you don't miss those in the future. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.